The 2000s were a very exciting era for handheld tech. You could now carry your entire music library in your pocket, you could go on the internet wherever you wanted, you could watch movies and TV shows on the go, you could chat with friends wherever you were, and you could experience 3D gaming in the palm of your hand. These devices may seem pretty cool, but what's even cooler is the fact that Sony was able to put all this in an excellent package and completely change the world in the process. Meet the PSP, a system that did everything I listed very well, and for quite an affordable price, especially if you add up the prices of every device I showed earlier. And while the PSP and its competition were selling like hotcakes, a new wave in handheld entertainment and communication was arriving, one that was about to change our lives forever: the smartphone. It excels at every capability I mentioned earlier. It's even better than the PSP at communication, it's easier to control, it doesn't make people look at you weird when you use it in public, and it's around the same price range. If you are responsible with your money, that is. Thankfully, the PSP didn't have to worry too much about phones, as they were quite primitive during its lifespan, and the PSP had bigger problems on its hands. But smartphones were quite the competition for the PS Vita. As such, Sony had to do something about it. The PS Vita team passed by their colleagues over at the mobile department, saw that phones had touchscreens and 3G connectivity, and boom, they made a new PSP with those things added in. Okay, there's quite a bit more to the story. Rumors for a successor to the PSP started becoming a thing in 2009. These rumors ended up being true, and Sony revealed this successor behind closed doors at the 2010 Tokyo Game Show. At this time, the system was still going by the codename NGP, or Next Generation Portable, but in June of 2011, Sony announced it as the PlayStation Vita. The Vita was released between 2011 and 2012 across a bunch of different regions as the successor to the legendary PSP. As I stated earlier, the handheld shares some similarities to most smartphones, mainly due to its 5-inch touchscreen display and 3G connectivity, letting you experience online gaming on the go, just like on a smartphone. When it comes to hardware, the Vita was quite a powerful system for its time and form factor, being more powerful than a PS2, but a little less powerful than the PS3. This power mainly comes from the ARM Cortex-A9 CPU, the 512MB of RAM, and the PowerVR SGX 543 MP4 Plus GPU. When it comes to connectivity, besides the aforementioned cellular capability, the Vita has Wi-Fi, which sounds like a given, but Sony ditched Wi-Fi just months before with the PSP Street. And speaking of the PSP, Sony took inspiration from the exquisite PSP Go and gave Bluetooth to the Vita, a feature that absolutely rocks, letting you connect all sorts of stuff, from external controllers to any old pair of wireless earbuds. Sony continued to do what they do best, which is create a console revision just for the fun of it, and this time it was the PS Vita 2000, made in order to cut costs. But honestly, compared to the original, the 2000 is the one I recommend getting. It uses micro USB instead of a weird proprietary format, it has better battery life, and 1GB of internal memory, just in case you don't have a memory card lying around. These pros to having a Vita 2000 pretty much outweigh the cons to not having a Vita 1000, which are not having OLED, not having 3G, good luck with that anyway, and not having a sturdier build. This is the PS Vita's home menu. It's quite different from the XMB, the layout present on the PSP and PS3, but hey, there is nothing wrong with a little change in appearance. This UI is all about bubbles, mainly due to the whole touchscreen thing. There are bubbles for apps, bubbles for folders, bubbles for games, it's all just a bunch of bubbles. Besides this, we also get some background music, which you're hearing right now. A little tune that isn't too annoying or repetitive, that perfectly fits with the bouncy and bubbly aesthetic of the UI. The Vita comes with quite a lot of stuff bundled in, so let's do a sort of quick fire round of the most interesting apps. There's the Welcome Park, a place for you to learn all about your new PS Vita system, a pretty outdated browser, the PlayStation Store, which is pretty dead, the PS4 Link app, which, believe it or not, links your PS Vita to a PS4, the email app, for some reason, a calendar, again, for some reason, Near, which was basically Sony's answer to Street Pass, PS3 Remote Play, I wonder what that one does, a pretty good camera app, and that's about it. Let's talk about games. Uncharted Golden Abyss and Fight for Fortune made it so that for the first time ever, you could experience the critically acclaimed Uncharted series on the go, with not one, but two titles that aren't too bad. I never played a lot of Uncharted, but while playing these two titles I can safely say it's Uncharted alright. Rayman, the beloved Ubisoft platformer, saw a bit of a renaissance during the 2010s with Rayman Origins and Legends. Both of these games are on the Vita, and they're excellent titles that bring a new twist to the 2D platformer genre. They're a must-have on every single platform they're released on. Touch My Katamari continues the charming yet weird vibe from Namco's iconic series. This title isn't terrible, but everyone just found it a bit too weird compared to the older games. There were some deviations from the original art style, mainly the transition of most characters to 3D, which wasn't exactly well received. Regardless, Touch My Katamari is still a solid title in the series, though when I feel like playing some Katamari on the Vita, I just put the PSP's Me and My Katamari. Gravity Rush, which is seen as the Vita's killer app, is a great looking game about a girl that has gravity powers and fights bad guys. I haven't played much, but so far it's been amazing. Little Big Planet Vita is a perfect fusion of the Vita's exquisite features with the charming world of the previous Little Big Planet games. Handheld versions of the LBP series are always surreal, having such an interesting world with so many ambitious features running on something I can keep in my pocket anywhere I go is amazing. And LBP on the Vita is certainly the cherry on top of this amazing library. Jet Set Radio, a stellar Dreamcast classic, went portable for the first time with the Vita. There was a GBA spin-off, but I'm not counting that. Jet Set Radio is quite a weird game, so explaining it is a bit challenging. But if you're into huge open worlds and completing tough missions, you're gonna love it. Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits is once again a beloved Sega franchise that had a spot on the Vita. It's pretty similar to Super Monkey Ball 3D for the 3DS, which was released a few months earlier. Both titles are great, and it's cool to see that not much has changed from the core gameplay of the series since its inception on arcades and the GameCube. Street Fighter Cross Tekken is one of the most memorable crossover fighting games of all time. I suck at this game, but it's pretty good. Some of my friends who are into fighting games say it's awesome, so you'll have to take their word for it. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is a Mario Kart clone with Sega characters and its own special gimmicks and features. I grew up with the PS3 version of this game, and I gotta say it's a fantastic racing game. Flower is one of my favorite games ever, and one of the most beautiful games ever made. The Vita version is no different from the PS3 or PC versions, apart from the controls that is. They're a bit hard to understand, but once you get the gist of it, you'll be met with a 10 out of 10 experience that you'll want to relive over and over again. Tearaway is a very charming game from Media Molecule, the creators of Little Big Planet. It's both a great title and a captivating tech demo, all in just one package. Much like Little Big Planet, it's a beautiful, quirky, and interactive experience that uses most, if not all of the Vita's features in an amazingly creative way. Fez is one of the best indie games ever, and it's the reason why I got myself a Vita. I was going through a Fez addiction after I got the game on Steam, and I just had to play it all the time, wherever I went. The Vita proved to be a very cool solution to that problem, to the point I stopped playing Fez on my PC and completely moved to the Vita version. It's one of the most creative ideas I've ever seen, by being a 2D and a 3D game at the same time. Fez and its development history were heavily documented in Indie Game the Movie, which I totally recommend watching. Borderlands 2 is perhaps a game you wouldn't expect to be on any handheld system, let alone the Vita. It's a very ambitious port of a pretty big game, and I'd say they did a pretty good job. I'm not a big Borderlands guy, but I play this game every now and then, and I love it. Minecraft PS Vita Edition has been, for nearly a year, my main way of playing Minecraft. If you want to try this version out, make sure to get Minecraft Enhanced. It's a community project consisting of a few quality of life features, which makes the experience a million times better. Last but not least, there's Super Meat Boy, a game I first played on the Vita. It's a super weird, funny, and creative idea that results in a very quirky and addictive title. It too was covered in Indie Game the Movie, and, just like Fez, is one of the big success stories of the indie gaming world. The Vita, much like any older console, has a thriving homebrew scene. There are several tutorials to help you mod your Vita, along with a bunch of people willing to help out over the web, so you can get your modded Vita running in no time. I want to take some time to talk about a few of my favorite homebrew apps. There's a lot of them, and they're pretty cool, so let's get started. VitaDB Downloader is basically a homebrew store, much like the Open Shop channel on the Wii. PKGJ is a way for you to read the names of thousands of games. That's just what it does. Vita Shell is an app you're going to be using all the time. It's a very useful file manager that allows you to remotely access your Vita system files through USB or even wirelessly through FTP. Battery Fixer claims to improve the Vita's battery capability by a lot. I installed this as soon as I got my Vita, so I don't know how much of an improvement it is, but I have no complaints when it comes to my Vita's battery life, so I'm guessing Battery Fixer is doing a good job. LCD color saturation is, as the name implies, a tool to slightly saturate the LCD display of the Vita 2000 in order to make it feel more like the 1000's OLED screen. LCD is, of course, not as good as OLED, but this tool aims to make it just a little bit better, and I'm all for it. Custom Themes Manager is a one-stop shop for all your theme needs. You can use it to apply theme files you got from the internet, or you can browse themes right in the app. I got kinda tired of using themes, but there are some really cool ones out there. Auto Plugin 2 is a plugin manager full of plugins that really bring some new potential to the Vita. You can make it possible to connect the DualShock controller and use the Vita in tabletop mode, as if it were a Switch. You can make it so that the Vita screen shows up as a webcam via USB, and those are only the two main ones I tend to use. The app comes with a huge list of different plugins for all your different needs, with plenty more available online. Last but not least, we have Adrenaline, which turns your Vita into a fully functional PSP. It runs all your games, it comes with some pretty good filtering options, and you can run the original PSP OS. We can pair this with Adrenaline Bubble Manager and make your PSP games show up directly on the Vita's home screen, without the need to go through Adrenaline itself. These are just some of my favorite homebrew tools, but there's a plethora of them on the Vita DB downloader. Throughout this video, we took a look at what made the PlayStation Vita so great, but as we all know, being great wasn't exactly what the Vita was known for. The Vita only sold around 15 million units, making it one of the worst-selling video game consoles of the past 2 decades. This failure can, from my perspective, be attributed to 3 main factors. The PS Vita isn't that different from the PSP to the untrained eye. Not to mention the name isn't all too different. And the PSP was still a big deal when it came out. Sound familiar? The Vita released just around the time smartphones started becoming better and more affordable. The iPhone 4S released just a few months before the Vita, and it is to this day regarded as one of the most iconic phones ever. This is the first phone that had Siri, by the way. So while this one wasn't really Sony's fault, smartphones, and especially mobile gaming, are a pretty big reason as to why the Vita failed. Mobile gaming became so dominant that after this generation, video game manufacturers were basically forced to reinvent the concept of the handheld console because a cute little personal gaming device was kind of a stupid idea when everyone had a supercomputer in their pocket. This one is 100% Sony's fault. Memory cards were absolutely necessary for you to use the Vita, and they made them cost an insanely high price. Not to mention they were proprietary. This wasn't a big deal during the PS1 and 2 days, but microSD cards had been a thing for over 5 years at this point. And even then, Sony had their own memory stick format. I mean, anything would have been better, and most likely cheaper, than the proprietary Vita Memory Card. Regardless, the Vita is still a pretty good system, and thankfully it has gotten a second life thanks to its loving community. Memory cards aren't even an issue anymore. All you need is an ST2 Vita and you're good to go. I got a 128GB SD card on my Vita, and some people left terabytes of games, saves, and media on their Vitas thanks to this. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to let me know what your thoughts are on the PS Vita, and I wish you all a nice day.